This is a game played around the 1900 level, and he starts with e4. I play the Sicilian. When he brings out his bishop here, I like to put my pawn here. Then we develop our knights. At this point, I strike in the center, defended by these. Take back with the pawn because there's a threat on the bishop. He checks. I block like this. Now this pawn's extra protected. At this point, I can put the bishop here. I don't have to put it here because this blocks the queen. At this point, a castle, ready for an attack. He takes my knight. I take back, and I have a good position here. Black's actually winning at this point because I have two bishops, and he has no development or compensation, and I have a stronger center. Okay, he has doubled my pawns, but that's really just giving my rook a lane, and yeah, it's really not an issue. Okay, so now I'm attacking the queen through the bishop. He moves the queen out of the way, but his queen and bishop should actually be reversed so he can sack here, potentially. Now at this point, I go for the knight because if he doesn't defend it, then the double pawns by his king are much more serious than mine on my other side of the board. So he hops his knight back. This is a bad move, defensive move. Now white is definitely losing. The knight is not good here. It blocks in this rook. Already moves like bishop and pinning or trapping the rook are possible. Not right now, but I could attack the knight and then do it. That's actually what I do in the game. He puts the knight back again. Again, if you're white and in the very beginning of the game, you have to put your knights in the back like this, it means you're losing. At this point, I could just win the rook with the bishop, but I decided to try to win the queen because the queen has no way to do anything except walk into the line of my bishop. At this point, his saving grace is the knight can go back to where it's supposed to be, in which case I will damage his structure, but at least he prevents the queen from being pinned. So here I thought for a long time about sacking the bishop. I did not. I took here. The purpose for the bishop sack would be so that when this is all happening, if the king no longer protects the rook because he took here, then I'm winning a rook. But in all variations, he's breaking the pin with the knight, which protects the rook with the queen, so it's kind of irrelevant. It does work, but basically those moves are evenly valued. So I take at this point because he can't take back with the queen. He has to ruin his structure, and if he takes my rook, I'm killing his queen. And at this point, the bishop and the rook are coordinating here. Obviously, I don't take with the bishop because his king would take my rook. So I take here. And this is a completely winning position as black. So I'll just go through it quickly. First, I saved my rook because he blocked this so he could try to attack it with the king. Then I develop my queen so that, I have pressure here. I give a check, and then I hop the knight in. Now the knight is threatening to win a rook with check, and it's also I'm piling up 4 pieces on the spot he can only defend 3 times. It is potentially dangerous for me just in the fact that there's open files, but his king's much weaker. He goes there. That's an attack on my rook. Best move by the computer is to defend the rook with the queen and just say my threat is still on. I have this threat, then the queen can swoop in, and I don't have to move my rook. But I decide to check, and you have to save your king because it's a knight checking you, and you have to step into the line of fire. I could back up and keep this available, I could also defend the rook again, his best move, because he can't kill the knight with the queen without losing it, and he can't kill the rook without losing that, and that would preserve the knight's mobility while defending the rook. That's why that's the best move. Instead, I just take his rook because I'm calculating I'm down 6 minutes and I know I'm winning, so I'll just take the rook, and if he takes my rook, then I have a check here, checking the king and queen. He'll have to take. I'll have this very strong passed pawn here, and he won't be able to defend this because his bishop will be dead. So that pawn will be supported by the rook and eventually win the game. But it's kind of a closer call than it should be. He makes a bad move here and just takes the knight instead of my free rook. So I back up and then reposition along this. And then I can take, and at this point I can't go here with the rook, so I go here, threatening to come around like this, and that should end the game. He brings his last piece into the game. I just take it because now he only has his knight is very bad, so he only has a queen to deal with 2 pieces and an open king. So at this point I could actually go here and guarantee a queen trade and win with this rook versus this knight and these passed pawns, but instead I go here with the threat of winning the queen, and I know that if he checks me, I can go here and there's no perpetual because the queen can exchange there, which is what happens. Then I start marching the king up. I only have 30 seconds though. So I use the king to support my pawns, and I know I have rook involvement, and I should have just a majority here once I win this isolated pawn, because the knight's not going to be able to defend it, the king's not going to be able to defend it. So I'm winning this pawn here. But first I check, then I kind of forget about this pawn and just decide to box his king in because I need a quick checkmate. He has a check here. I also wanted to, the reason I moved my rook is because I don't want to allow this. And the only reason I allowed this for a second is because it comes with a check, so he doesn't have time. So now I'm by making this move, I'm protecting my rook, getting out of the check and rook. And I knew that I could go here with my king, and although he's winning these pawns potentially, my king and 2 pawns and rook, and then winning this is my plan here. I win this pawn and then queen and checkmate. So I go after here. The knight is too slow. The king's gonna be in check. He's trying to make a queen. I check. At this point, he's forced to go to the back rank, but he doesn't. He goes up, and then there's a checkmate because my king is in a good position. So that is the first game, and I played that with 0 mistakes, 0 misses, just basically a perfect game, 2300 rating. All right, so now we're gonna go to the other. I play bullet games sometimes, but we're gonna show my loss in Rapid and then 2 other wins. So I think this is my loss in Rapid. Why can't I go full screen? I don't know what's wrong with this right now. Yeah, okay. So we're 1860. I'm black, and he has a good position here, and he's threatening here, so I go here, and I castle. At this point, we develop our knights. I have a good position, but he has a better position because he's white, and I'm not playing the best. I decided to fianchetto this way, and then I play c5 finally, He hops in. He's got a very strong position here, and I decide to take in the middle to split his pawn center, and then I hop here saying I'm gonna take your bishop unless you take my knight, and then I'll take your bishop. So I'm winning one of these bishops unless you do the smart thing and retreat. He doesn't. He takes. The good thing about this move for him is it kind of nerfs my bishop. Then I decide to take his forward knight, which maybe wasn't the smartest move because now he has a good center. But I immediately challenge it 3 times, but he takes. So I like my queen here attacking the rook, but it's really not doing much. And this pawn's a problem. If I take, I have kind of a weak center. So I decided this move to just push and leave this because the queen can always kill it. And I'm saying you're not going to be able to defend this pawn. Plus, I wanted to kind of open up this rook. I don't know. So he plays his rook here. This is a great move. This guy beat me this game. This is just a good move. At this point, I decide to attack his knight, force it back, and then play the queen up here. So now I have kind of a threat on his king, potentially. But he stops that threat. Another good move. And then I play my rook to here because if I don't do that, if I just take the pawn here, you see the strength in his position. He's already winning my queen, protected by the rook with the bishop. So first I cover that square. Now I can take because I have 2 pieces defending that square. Now I move the king. This is a bad move. I did it to stop this. Probably a better move would be to just slowly build up. But I was afraid if I go here and he goes here and I take, bishop takes. I have this bad pawn here. He has an active bishop. I just didn't like it. I think maybe best move is like just keep things where they are and start attacking his queen and bishop. Instead, I do that, but kind of in this direction because I'm thinking maybe I can use this flank, but I never can. So maybe this rook belongs here and this one should have moved over. And also maybe I should have doubled up faster. Here, though, I get in with an attack here, and he attacks me, but my king's no longer there, and I have this threat on this pawn, which undermines this pawn and potentially attacks a rook if he moves this one. So I'm up a pawn, but his position is getting better, and his knight is now in the center and defending this. So I decide to take the knight so that I can win this pawn. And theoretically, I should have enough to win or tie because 2 passed pawns connected, unopposed, versus a 4-on-4 on the other side and equal material. He just has a better bishop than me. That's really what it is, and it's significant. And the question is, can I even defend these pawns? Immediately he attacks it while infiltrating, and computer says this is about even. Maybe I'm winning slightly. This is where I make a bad move according to the computer because the queen needs to get back and the rook, there's no easy way without the queen's assistance. The queen is offsides. It did its job winning 2 pawns. It needs to kind of get back or to at least deliver an immediate check and become relevant because this rook is too strong. I cannot allow it to attack my king and bishop if the rooks ever double up. So what I need to do is immediately challenge, but I can't because the rook would just take. So there's no easy way to double up without the queen coming back and facilitating it. So at this point he makes that move. I don't really know why. Maybe it's so that the king doesn't get mated because he's planning on bringing this rook in. So I give a check, but he has that nice square. Yeah, so maybe I should have checked him first So he's at least in the back rank for later when the queen moves up so I can attack him. Here is where I am still winning, and I lose the game here because I'm down 3 minutes and I don't like this bishop, and I decide to take it thinking maybe my 2 pawns, even if I sack the exchange, I'm winning a bishop and a pawn, and maybe I'll have central control and I'll win the game if my bishop becomes activated. I'm thinking, take, and then I can push this pawn up. This bishop becomes active. This pawn goes in queens. Could work if not for the fact that his rook down here is too strong. If I ever try to attack it, it's just an immediate double up, and then he can move and come in like this. And then my bishop essentially gets pinned because there's a mate here, especially with this rook here. So he attacks my queen. I go over here, and already I'm lost because this bishop's gonna die, so I have to defend it. I can't move it or there's a checkmate here now, and that's why he takes here. And now there's 3 attackers here, and I try to defend with my queen, and he just takes my queen because I can't move the bishop because there's a mate here. So, and there's no good check because the king is safe. If I was able to somehow check here, I could have a perpetual thanks to this pawn's position, but there's just nothing going on. The bishop would be good if it wasn't pinned to the mate. So that is a good game by him, and I was winning if I just quit while I was ahead after I got greedy material. If you just come back, black's just winning. Like right here, black is slightly better. If I think best move is checking and eventually kind of figuring out a way to block. But even just as simple as queen back here and then rook here, the rook doesn't have room to dance around back in my, it has to go back, and then I can win. But yeah, so lesson learned. Okay. Okay, at this point, another rapid game around 1900. We do a little Queen's Gambit. He's doing this fianchetto. I pin his knight immediately to the queen because there's maybe some attacking possibilities. Then I block my bishop out of the pawn chain, and I'm basically saying I'm gonna sacrifice this bishop for one of these pieces, and that way it's not stuck back here doing nothing. I take in the middle, he takes, I take, and he takes back. I don't know why he doesn't just take with the queen, and then if I take him, he can take with the bishop. But he goes all the way back, I guess, opening up his bishop. At this point, I take the c-file, and I have threats, really strong threats. So he plays a knight here. Again, that's not a good move either. So really, the way you use your knights is super important in the opening, because in my opinion, you're lost already as black here, because I'm attacking this, which is defending this, which I'm also attacking. So if this pawn moves, check. And I'm winning the bishop for free. Now the question is, can the queen move simultaneously attacking the knight and the knight cannot escape? Yes, but doesn't matter. I can actually take this pawn, and if you take the knight, then I fork your queen in. Or it's actually more complicated than that. It has to do with this f3 square and this rook being hanging, because the knight check is very powerful because you're not able to castle, so this rook can't support that rook. And when the queen is moving, at this point, any sort of knight move
and then queen f3, you're threatening mate on f7 and also the rook at the same time. So you win the rook in a lot of situations. So I just decide, well, I'm already up a bishop, so I'm just going to defend my knight, and then he attacks my bishop, and I'm like, oh no, did I mess that up? Because now he's going to take my bishop, and then my knight is trapped. My knight still can't get out. And the knight always can get out by just taking here. Because I'm already up a piece, I end up this pawn is so, this point is so weak. Even in this position here, I can take here, and if he takes my bishop, my knight recaptures and survives. If he tries to take my knight, then the rook is attacking the queen, and then the bishop gets away, and I win a bishop and 2 pawns for just the knight, and I have a massive attack with knight moves here, g5 and e5. So I actually just play queen a5 to hold on to this, so if he takes, I take, and the knight is safe, and then I can start chomping away, and he resigns. It is, when I looked at the computer lines of like knight g5 and queen f3, it's pretty disgusting. Because the beautiful thing about knight over here, the crazy thing about this move is, and maybe that's after like knight here, but the crazy thing about knight g5 and the queen f3 idea is there's a fork here. If this pawn moves, you win the queen. So that pawn can't move to kick the knight and defend at the same time against queen f3, which defends the knight and attacks the rook. So just a nasty line. I mean, in this position, I think he just takes there. So I think it's something to do with like this. You can't take with the queen. If you're trying to trap the knight, that means you're taking with a pawn, and then let me actually go back. I want to show you that line. At this point, computer thinks, yeah, you check, you win the bishop. And then at this point, it says you're winning in 3 different ways. If you just simply take, he can't take here. And I thought the move is this. And if knight takes, there's a queen check. And this pawn is falling. Or this knight is falling. But also, if instead of that, if you just take with the knight and say you can't trap me, b4, wow. Yeah, I guess this is too strong of a position because of the pin. But there's also, I want to see the knight g5 lines. So let's say, yeah, let's say I bring the bishop out and he goes here. I think, yeah, there's a knight g5 here. And if he just chomps the bishop and the knight is dead, there's a queen f3 defending the knight and threatening checkmate. And you can't do this because you get hit here. So what do? Well, if you try to block with the knight, there's a knight takes c5. Again, how does this work? Well, do you try to take like that? Suddenly, that's a discovered attack on your rook. So when my knight is escaping, it's escaping because your rook is undefended right here. So you can't take without me taking here. So the queen is such a good piece on f3, and the knight is such a good piece on g5, and it's just so you're busted at this stage of the game. You're busted unless you bishop takes f3. Unless you do that. Wouldn't you check though? It says I'm losing if I check because queen sacks herself because this bishop is attacking my queen. Okay, so no time for checks. You take there, and then castle. Okay, but I guess here is when he's busted. All right, so now I'm going to show my last game. No, not bullet. Rapido. Bullet I play at a very low level. Unless I'm trying, then I can get up to 1800 again. But typically I don't try in bullet, I just experiment with different openings. Okay, so now we have little Queen's Gambit type position, King's Indian type defense. And at this point, he thought for a while here before he played this move. There we go, I got my arrows back. Normally I like to have my queen here so that if this move is played, the queen can take. Here I have to decide if I'm sacking the bishop or exchanging, I should say, or retreating or maintaining this Yugoslav attack. I decided to go back to pin the queen to the knight, and I'm daring him to go here because my plan is to go here and then eventually play h4, and there's a hook, and there will be tension, and then the rook will attack the king's position, and I'll castle queenside. But he does not go after the bishop, which is probably the right idea. Instead, he attacks in the middle, but this is kind of suicide because he only has one other pawn defending, and I have a knight. So, and it's not pinned yet. So I take, at this point, I could exchange queens. It's definitely what I saw in my head, but I always avoid queens. I always give the opportunity for them to play a game with queens on the board because I like queens. So I just take with the knight and say, show me. He plays a good move, keeping the queens on the board as opposed to just letting me develop a rook. Now he's trying to claim that his pressure on my knight is enough to undermine e4 and my king, but I just play f4 and say, well, I'm keeping my knight here because you cannot get rid of him, and he already won a pawn, so like if you go here, I just kind of take, and when you take back, then I have time to defend this. He attacks my queen. I play queen f3. The queen is extremely good on f3. If I put it anywhere else, it would have problems with it. Like e2 would block the bishop and not defend the knight. You'll see why the knight needs to be defended later. Queen c2, not as good because my knight has already vacated f3, so the queen is wonderful there, and the knight doesn't have to ever go back there. It can just die here or go back somewhere else or forward. There's sacks here or something, who knows. So he comes in, but this is an idle threat because the strength of this threat with the queen is to attack the rook and force it to move and then kill the knight with check. But because the queen's on f3, the knight is never being lost. So I can just develop normally here. Just calm, bishop e2, go ahead and take my pawn, and then I'll castle. And this rook will protect that rook, and this knight will be defended. So even though you killed this pawn, I will have castled and gotten my rooks connected. Knight's ready to hop in. I'm up a pawn, and we'll both be... I'll be ahead on tempo and castled and material. So I can give up this pawn and then castle. And then he comes in, but again, you're attacking something that's defended by a knight and a queen. And... even if I move my knight or my bishop, The queen still defends my king, so queen is excellent on f3. And I have successfully won this pawn without losing this pawn. So I'm winning in the center. And now I have an open file to attack the queen. He can't take here because the knight defends. This queen is running short on squares. If it goes here, it's actually lost to rook here, would kill the queen. So it has to go there. It does. And then I attack it again because I know this queen is very close to being trapped. So I'm like, I'll just attack you again. Also, I could have moved my knight in here, but there's tension. Again, I try to avoid queen tension until the game's secure. He gets out with a check, but my bishop is not defending much over there, so it just comes back. Defends my king and simultaneously attacks his queen. Just got to move that queen again. The queen goes back here. Now he's abandoned his rook, so I could just exchange it, but I don't want to. I'd rather like attack it with the queen or something. I decided to attack it with the bishop because that frees up my rook and queen to attack on f7 eventually. So now I have very strongly repositioned this piece, and this piece is good. This piece is defended enough and ready to hop in. So it does. And I decide here I'm just going to take back towards the center because this bishop, if you look at this position, my worst piece is my light squared bishop because it's just defending a pawn. Whereas if I hop the knight in and take this way, now I know my bishop's going to live here and attack this king long term because I've gotten my pawn out of the way. And he can't do something like undermine it because I'll just reinforce it with the bishop. So yeah, I could just play bishop here. Not sure why I didn't, but I guess I just decided I'm going to take first because if you take with the knight, I'll just take you and then I'll play against this isolated pawn. So I was thinking about my rook here. Okay, and now the rook is in the game. This rook's in the game. This rook is not in the game. And I'm attacking his isolated pawn. I have a strong center. Okay, he plays this pawn move. Maybe with ideas of here. I don't care. I attack his queen first. He goes over here. Now, I guess he's trying to get an attack going on my king, but there's really nothing that isn't defended well. Also, I could just attack him, but if I attack him, I'm opening up these light squares for this light squared bishop to be more powerful. So for now, I'm keeping my king like this. Also, I have vertical or horizontal protection. So now I just play the bishop here, and now I have two bishops. I'm preventing this pawn from moving, and I'm using these bishops diagonally, and they can't be attacked from the front because of this. I'm playing against this pawn, you know. So now this pawn's under attack, kind of, and this pawn is not defended anymore because this pin. So he brings his rook down again. So you'll see he had his rook down there earlier. He brought it back. Some things happened, and now he's bringing it down again. And this is starting to look a little bit scary, but the knight and the queen and the king are decent defenders against this type of attack. Because this rook's a long way from getting over here. So here I decide to blunt his bishop. And I'm also opening up my queen for an attack here. And I'm thinking if you can't really put your bishop here because I'll take it. So he brings his bishop down here, attacking the queen. If the queen abandons, he's thinking I have 3 attackers on this king here. But I don't care. I take this because it comes with an attack on the rook with check, which would be a check. And then he's bringing his rook down. So, okay, it's starting to look kind of scary, but his bishop is still boxed out. He doesn't have this piece really doing anything other than defending his king. And this piece also isn't necessarily involved in the attack, especially because I haven't attacked his queen.
And so here I'm running out of time, and it says black is winning here after this move, rook to b7. In this position, white is winning if I respect his latest move, which is a strong threat. He has a threat of checking, and when I take, he brings the other rook in and he's checking me. And then I have to sacrifice my offensive advantage by blocking, because the king cannot escape the check because of the queen. So this becomes a defensive piece, and then his queen can come down and he's piling up on it. And although I can defend it with my queen, it's better for black. So what I should do in this position, according to the computer, is just go here, and that way there's no check, and it gives me time to maybe attack better. Oh, don't do this to me. Come on. All right, but anyway, I'm running low on time, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna go here because ideally I'd like to keep this here, but it's, you know, and maybe play like rook here to cut off the queen from this threat, and maybe also I want to attack this rook while attacking this, but it's actually not threatened because it's defended, and the queen kind of wants to be able to defend a checkmate here. So I was thinking maybe I go here with the queen, and so I'm still defending my king kind of, but I'm also attacking this pawn. But I decided to just bring the rook over because this rook is busy on the back rank, but this one isn't. Again, after the game, I was thinking maybe I should just bring this rook back and not allow any sort of infiltration. And I suspect this is also a good move, but I know that computer wanted this. Sometimes it's best just to not let the rook deliver a check, but to be on the other side, like to be in between your king and the check. That way you have the option of not responding to the check immediately and like doing a threat of your own. But anyway, I go here with the idea of this rook is going to become an attacking piece. This pawn is pinned, and I also thought in this position I can take with the queen here. But then I was worried about sacking and bringing this rook in. Like, it's actually kind of interesting. Like, if I go here and he checks and I take, he has a check again. And I can't block. And now I'm kind of lost. It seems like I'm lost. But actually, yeah, it seems like I'm lost there. So I didn't like those sacrifices. That's why I wanted to keep the queen here. So I bring the rook up here to keep the queen here, and then so my queen can defend without overcommitting to an attack. And then he makes a bad move, disconnecting his rooks, attacking my queen. Now the reason for this move is so that if I move the queen, he can take the bishop, and if I take the bishop back, well, maybe he was thinking, maybe he's thinking my best defensive piece is this bishop, because he wants to go, he wants to be able to play this, and then when I move, kind of checkmate me here. But my bishop and queen are defending those squares. So he thinks by putting a rook here defended by his bishop, maybe my queen blunders into something or goes over here and he can win this, and then he has this check and mate. I guess that's what he's thinking, but he should just check, because if I take, then he's coming down with the check, and that's strong. So from this position, I'm under attack. He's also thinking I have to stay to guard my bishop, but I don't. I take over here because this pawn is pinned. And now if you take my bishop, I'm taking your pawn with check and then mate. So he brings his bishop back, spotting the pin. Now he can kill my queen. So I take his bishop so that the pin is remained. Very important move. He checks me now, but because this rook is not behind it, I can take, and there's no another check, which would be a mate. Because this rook is offside, now he tries moving his king because there's no. He wants to restore this, get out of this pin, so my queen is under attack. But now I just take the pawn, and I'm also threatening his bishop, and I'm threatening a mate here, so the rook can't defend the bishop. The queen cannot defend either. I guess, yeah, queen can't defend, rook can't defend, so he takes my bishop, and it's checkmate. So really interesting game there. Let me analyze it. So it does like black here if he throws in g5. And I was thinking it is kind of a problem because this pawn is overloaded on f4. But he doesn't. Queen f3 is not listed as the best move, but it ended up being a good place for the queen. His whole plan of this queen over here didn't really work. White's winning here by 2 pawns, it says. It likes rook b3, bishop f2, knight d5. It likes all this. Bishop c4, of course, but instead I took here. Now it likes bishop e6 here, so it likes to bring his bishop out. Instead he plays that, and it gives me time to attack his queen. Bishop d4 check is best move. Yeah, bishop d4 check, just ignoring the threat on your queen so that rook can get active. Here I go the pawn in the middle, queen takes. This is where I blow it. It says he's winning by mate, a forced mate if he checks. But we're down to a minute each. And there's only one good move here, and I find it. And that's the winning move. Is he missed his chance, and I found mine with low time. And it's disappointing that it's this hard for me. Like the games are this close, and I don't like watching a game where I was technically losing here. But with 1 minute left, putting your rook on the second rank like this is generally going to give you counter chances. But yeah, he has a check, and when I block, I saw all of this. I guess what I missed is that I figured my queen could defend, but the problem is he has a bishop e2 move, and I can't take because he takes and I can't take back. So the bishop e2 is what I missed. Because I thought in this position, I think I'm winning materially and I'm still defending my bishop, but it sucks. It's a bad position. And I only saw it after I moved here, while it was his turn with 2 minutes left. And he thought for a while and made a mistake. And I was thinking, oh no, if he goes down there, I'm kind of in trouble. I'm curious, yeah, rook f1 it likes, but what about rook back? Bishop h3. Yeah, I don't think he's finding bishop h3. I think here he can still check. And then I attack his queen. Yeah, e6 is always really strong. I really wish it would let me right click during analysis with the computer. For some reason it's not. But anyway, yeah, let me see if I can find another one of my rapid games. Yeah, advanced. Okay. Let's check out this one. So in this position, I wait for him to take to develop my bishop, and then when I see his knight here, I play the queen here because he doesn't have his knight in the normal position where he can fork. And the queen and the bishop here are strong. However, he immediately goes for a trade, which kills all the fun in the position, and I don't like that at all. So best move was just a castle. So I castle. And I start, yeah, this was a bad game by me, actually. Because by playing this flank pawn up, I was trying to play queen a2 and get out of it, but he took his moment, and I can't take with this pawn giving me something. So instead, I just have a bishop, which is bad because it's blocking a pawn. And so I go back. It hates this move. Better is anything else. And again, bishop should go all the way back. Sometimes I don't like that because I get mated, but the bishop here is just immediately hit by the knight. And then my bishop pair is gone because if I save this, which I think I do, he's got this, which I saw, but he actually hops in with the other knight. And then, I mean, I go here to stop the check. If I play a normal move, he just check and rooks me. So now I just have a bad position. I somehow win this game by I go here threatening this. So now if he does any sort of discovered attack, like taking this pawn, attacking this rook, I take his knight, and then when he takes my rook, I take his bishop, and then I'm getting two minors. Instead, we trade like this. I play a pawn move. Another kind of bad move because now I'm just stuck defending it. But I attack his bishop. Then he's forking my rooks. Bad move by me. But I take his bishop. Oh, I remember how I won this. Yeah, I take his bishop. He takes my rook. And now I take this pawn. And he thinks he's winning with this move because he's saying you only have one rook. I have two. And now I'm going to exchange rooks. But what he didn't see is I still have that sneaky bishop. So he resigned here. That's a bad game though. Let's find a good one. And I did have some compensation there in that position. Why does it always revert back to the bullet? Crap. Alright, Sicilian game. He attacks my knight, I attack his bishop. He takes. I just immediately assault his king. And I'm threatening his rook. And now his queen's under attack. And then my bishop's coming in the game. And here I literally mouse slipped. I'm playing on my phone while watching TV, and I mouse slip. And I was thinking about the square a lot because I'm controlling it, but I do not want to offer my bishop for a knight. That's not how I play. I was thinking about going here, but maybe I was thinking maybe I hop the knight in first and then eventually go here. But I wanted my bishop here for some reason to kill the knight. Problem is this knight just replaces it, but if this knight goes somewhere else, that's why I was hoping for like a knight exchange here and then eventually getting my bishop in here and killing this, luring the king out and making this pawn available for a grab. And also if I get this knight away from defending that, the queen can come in. So that's what I was thinking during the slip. But I'm thinking, this little move, you know, how useful is that for him? I'll just go to where I was thinking about going. And then I go all the way back because I chicken out. I decide I don't want to just take here because he'll just take back, and then same problem, queen can't infiltrate. So here my winning advantage should be this rook, but the queen is having trouble getting in, and I can't play here because he just takes. And I can't really play here because then there's attack on my king. So I bring the bishop all the way back. Then he starts attacking on that side. I bring the bishop over here. Kind of thinking I'm gonna castle queenside and get these rooks going. Also, now I have some serious action on the file in front of his king. Hop the knight back. Further reinforcing this point so that if the bishop is exchanged over here, I still have something defending that. I play it. He gets his king out of the way, but now he's stepping into my rook, which is going to cost him. At this point, he takes with the rook. Kind of risky, but I guess he wants to double up. But you'll see in my game when I got mated like that, generally the king is actually not very good in the corner. It's not very safe. There's a lot of mating ideas. So I take here, and he comes down. Probably better is immediately doubling up, but he comes down, and I guess he's threatening if you castle, I'll take this. But I just castle anyways, and he takes it, and then I go here, because now I'm threatening to double up and checkmate him around there. Also, this bishop's kind of sneaky, not letting a king escape if I have two rooks here. So he goes there, and now the threat is really on. I'm threatening mate in one here because this rook prevents the king escaping, and this rook will prevent him escaping. So this is a checkmate in one if this knight moves. So how do I get this knight to move? Well, it's a problem because these knights actually defend each other. So even if I kill this knight, the other one will be there. I really have to lure him away somehow. So we start having tension here, and I think, well, I need this knight to go here. I decide I'm going to take here first. Maybe because my bishop's bad. So if his knight, I'm daring his knight to take here, and that will loosen this knight. Because I don't want a knight there the whole game. So he takes with the pawn, though, and then I just take here, saying, go ahead and move your knight and get checkmated. And he doesn't. He moves his queen, and now he's defending his loose knight twice, and he's threatening to come in. So this is the game I wanted to show. It's actually a very interesting game. This is why I've been thinking about making a chess video. This is a good game because I got some exciting pressure on his king here, and he's hanging on for dear life, but he's also got some pressure on me right in front of my king with his queen and his rook. So the knight's a good defender, though. So here I play the bishop here. There's a lot of different moves I was thinking here, but I thought the bishop really isn't doing much. Yes, I could win this pawn and force his knight out, and then that weakens this knight, and then I can think about what I was thinking about here is I can sacrifice my queen. I can take this knight for free because he can't take back because I take this and it's checkmate. The problem with taking the knight is he has a check with his queen. And then when I move the king, he can take my knight. So yeah, I win a knight, but he wins a check and a knight and a future mate. So yes, this queen's hanging, or this knight's hanging, but because this knight's overloaded. But this is a real threat. So I'm like, I'm gonna play the bishop here. It's attacking the king through pieces and defending. The problem with this move is I better play this next because I need to unleash this bishop. And he should play this. The reason he doesn't is because the knight can just take it with an attack on the queen. But still, sometimes that's your best move, is to blockade, even with the pawn sacrifice, because that would take me 2-3 moves to get this bishop liberated. And that's a lot of moves, because in 3 moves, he can come down here and start checking me. So he takes a pawn in the middle of the board. Another huge threat, threatening to checkmate me. If I do nothing, if I like, you know, go here or something, he checks, I move, checkmate. So I have to respect this threat. He is walking into hell if I play a pawn move, and I'm not immediately mated, but I am immediately mated, so I can't play this pawn up. Have to respect this. So I have to move the knight or defend the knight with the queen. Or the rook, you know, but I don't want to move this rook. This rook is threatening me. So I take this pawn with my knight. Very complicated move. Because it looks like he is attacking this twice and it's only defended once, so it looks like I'm blundering a knight. But what the knight is doing here is it's threatening his weak knight, that if this knight moves, I have mate in 1. And if I take it and he takes, sometimes I can win it back. I also have this, at the end of everything, I have a check, or a potential check that wins a queen with a pawn at the end of a bunch of exchanges here, even if the rook's involved. Also, I can sacrifice the rook, and when the knight takes, another check. That's a recurring theme, is I can sack the rook, and when knight takes, the king is blockaded by his knight and rook, and any bishop check kills him, or at least kills the queen, because then he has to block, and then the queen is killed on this square. Or if the queen blocks, the bishop kills the queen. So that is the mate, or that is the idea of the position. In fact, even right here, I wonder if I can say check, and this is a mate unless you take. So the take is forced. This has opened up this lane, so check. And how are you not checkmated? Well, you can't go here because you're pinned. The king can't move. If the rook blocks, I kill the queen, saving my knight and pinning your rook. You know, if this blocks, same thing. The queen is just dead. If the queen blocks, you take it. And I have a queen. Should be enough to win. Maybe via queen back here, threatening to come in here. Also, the knight can just take immediately, and threatening to pin this knight and win. Attack the pin piece, attack the rook. No more queen to worry about. So that is the move. However, I thought this knight move was clever because I'm saying you have no threat. The knight defends this. I'm tempting you to take here because there's a checkmate. And if you take with the queen, I can just take the queen. And same thing, you can't take because mate. So you can't kill the knight with either piece, and you can't go here because of that. So what are you doing? Plus, I'm attacking you once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times, basically. So this is a cool move that I really liked, but I didn't see the mate in 3. I was thinking about all this, but this is
This is, to me, is when chess is fun. Is when you have like a cool sacrifice like that you're on the verge of seeing. I know it's there, but I didn't calculate it exactly because I was thinking defensively, because this is a mate in 2 threat. So I get out of the mate in 2, and what's he gonna do? Well, he decides to stop this idea of the sacrifice, because now the rook defends. So now any sacrifice here, rook takes or knight takes, gives the king room, and he's just defending against this idea. Now this knight is actually free to take my knight. So what do? I take his rook, and that's pretty much game over. So another good thing about this move, taking here, is not only am I defending this, threatening to win a queen or do a bunch of stuff, but the lost threat in all of this is that the rook is under attack. And if he moves the rook to the side, which is what I thought he was going to do, I thought he was going to play rook here. Thought that was best move, because you have to respect that threat. And you can't do anything about my knight's position. So you have to allow my knight to be here. You can't move your queen for any check. So you have to get the rook out. You want to get the rook out this way so that this rook can still come in and help. And you want to attack this pawn and this knight and preserve this threat. Because now if I take here, there's a check. Here, though, I would still have the move of check, which wins a queen. And maybe I would have found it then. But yeah, he goes there. I take the rook. What is the best move? Anyway, we'll see what the game was, and then I'll show the best lines. So I take the rook. He goes here, and now he's threatening the knight. And I bring the queen back because the battle is over. I could take this, maybe. No. Yeah, I could think about sacking the queen and playing this or something. I could just play this right away. I should have already played this move at some point. But I decided I'm bringing the queen back because I just won a rook for nothing. So now I'm up a rook. So I'll just win a game up a rook, even though it's not as flashy anymore. I finally get my pawn in. He should at this point block this off so the bishop is a bad piece. But instead I get this pawn up. And now he has serious problems with his king. He does get a check here, but I just let him do that because I thought, whatever, this pawn doesn't matter. The important thing, you have to be willing to sacrifice pawns to activate bishops. So then he goes here, and at this point, this knight is pinned. So I can just check here. I should just check there, and it's like pretty much game over. But instead, I just see the rook and just take the rook. Because if I take his rook, then he doesn't have any rooks, and I do. So I should be able to win this game without thinking with a minute left. So I go here. This move also is... I do see the pin here. I see that... if I take the rook, he has to take back with this pawn. He can't take back with this pawn. So when he takes back with this pawn, the queen can already take here, and it's threatening a mate. What I didn't see is that this knight is never actually defending anything because it's pinned. That's what I didn't really kind of see as far as the queen using this pin too. So there's just too many pins here. But anyway, I decide I'm going to go here because this is forking. I'm getting all the material off the board. I'm getting this material off the board, and I'm getting this material off the board because now the queen is hit. There's no check, and this is pinned. So he goes there. I defend my rook, or I defend my knight. Why do I do this? To give my queen time to maybe join in, so to make sure all the pieces are exchanged and I can go queen and win. Here he steps into the check, I take, he takes, and then I take again. just to say I have simplified. So yeah, maybe I just made that move to be quick. But anyway, at this point, I just decide I've simplified. I bring the rook back, and this is a winning endgame for black because the one queen can't defeat the added pressure of the rook. His king's out in the open. Now I go for the queen exchange. If we exchange, I should, even with 20 seconds, the rook here prevents the king from stopping my queen. And once I have a queen and a rook against nothing, so that's my strategy. So here I block with the rook because if there's any check on the back rank, I step up. The back rank no longer exists tactically, and I move up the board. Here I start just marching up, and at this point I make a clutch move. Queen here. The queen is here, threatening to check and harass him. But my real threat is here, rook to here. It's a sneaky queen move that pretends like I'm stopping his pawn, but really the pawn never had a chance because this rook, and I can always sacrifice the rook for the pawn if I'm getting a queen over here. Also, now my threat is to just win his queen. So I play that, take, check, check. And at this point, I can move this pawn down the board. There's easier ways to win this, but I only have 12 seconds, so I'm just going to sack the queen. His king's out of position. I get a queen. I can check him here, but instead I just protect my pawn. And he's going to be forced to move somewhere other than defending his pawn. So now I can just march my king up and win his pawn and go queen. There's no way for him to defend this pawn because this square is covered and he can't kill the pawn. So he has to just run away and allow me to kill that. And at this point, even if you take the queen off the board, I'm winning here. So once if there's only 6 seconds, there's no increment. I have 2 queens. What's the fastest way to checkmate? The fastest way to checkmate is to not think about it and only pre-move. So what's the best way to pre-move? Well, you don't want to stalemate him. So first I get my king just out of the way of the madness. So the king is just out of the way. Then I play this queen here with the check, and I'm going to ladder him on the left side because he can't go this way, and I can just pre-move like this. And there will be a ladder checkmate. And no matter when 2 queens are like this, it doesn't matter how much time I have, the king can never accidentally win a queen as long as the queens are protecting each other, and they are protecting each other the whole way down. So it's physically impossible no matter what he does. This is the perfect pre-move mate system. You can do it with a rook too, but one of the pieces has to be a queen. And yeah, so that was a really good game. Really, really interesting game because in this position, I have 2 bishops and he doesn't. And he has an advanced center, so I need space. And I need open lines. So I just start pouncing on that side because, you know, what is he going to do? He should probably play h4 here. Once I play it, normally I can't play that move, but I can because it's really well supported. And then I just play it again because it's like, what are you going to do? If you go here, that's a long-term thorn in your side as a king. You have no light squared bishop, and my pawn is right there. Queen can sneak in there and checkmate you later in the middle game, especially with this queen off sides. This queen comes in here and checkmates. So I take. Reason I take is because this rook ends up being a monster. So I don't even have to worry about him taking here and attacking this rook because I'm taking with a queen and check. So he has to take, and now gives me time to push his queen back. And then I kind of reconsider my position and start attacking with this pawn. And once there's some exchanges, I'm winning over there because of this. This move, attacking my knight, is ill-advised because of the queen just wins it back. And then I castle and double up. And then here, I think there's a mate in 3. So it says white's winning here. If he quickly doubles. So his mistake is taking this pawn, trying to kill this knight. Yeah, he needs a double with rook b1. Or, I'm sorry, rook. I guess it wants to double that way and go back that way. And defend his king, like. But he takes here, and then there's rook h2 wins the queen. I play that, and his best move is knight b3. Yeah, this is the move I missed. Knight b3, it makes it so my queen can't defend this knight. There's actually nowhere for my queen to protect this knight. And my queen is under attack. And if I, let's say, go here, he takes, and he's threatening a mate. I don't have time to win this. That's checkmate. So I did miss this move. Probably because I thought maybe I go here, and there's a checkmate here. But here he has a check. What the problem is with this, the problem with my knight, clever move, is it actually isn't threatening anything because it's tied to defense. So the knight is protecting against queen d7 winning. So all he has to do is attack my queen, but he instead defends his position, and then I take his rook. And what if his rook goes here? Then there's a check. And there's always the c5 check, like I said. So anyway, I take his rook, and then from that point on, it's pretty straightforward. Here, again, instead of taking his rook, I should just realize there's a pin and take, and then he goes there, and I check. He goes there, and it's checkmate. Because you can't take. So, but instead, with low time, when he offers a rook like that for an exchange, I just say, fine, I'll just take it. And although it's not mate in 3, it's minus, or it's depending on what he does, it's mate in 8 or minus 10. So it's like, yeah, they call it a miss. It's not a mistake. It's just a miss because I'm missing the checkmate. But yeah, that's the games. I'm trying to get to 1900. I mean, the goal is 2000 on chess.com. I've been 2100 on Lichess. But chess.com is a little bit harder, so I'm trying to get 2,000. But in order to get 2,000, you got to get 1,900. I've got 1,900 before, but trying to do it again. But it's a challenge. You got to stay focused, and you got to respect your enemy threats. And I'm barely winning. I'm winning by, like, usually on the board I win pretty significantly, but by time I almost always have, like, seconds on the clock. But I feel, because I play so much bullet, I feel comfortable with winning positions with seconds on the clock. And so yeah, that's it. All right, thanks.